nestled deep in the Pennsylvania countryside. Beyond cell service and GPS signals sits a house that should not exist. No one remembers when it was built. It doesn't appear on maps. The paint never chips, the roof never leaks, and no one lives there, at least not in the traditional sense. The locals call it the strange house. Kids dare each other to touch its door. Adults cross the street to avoid its line of sight. And every so often, someone disappears, only to be found days later muttering nonsense about a man with many eyes and rooms that watch you back. The house doesn't just haunt the land, it haunts the mind, the digital dare. It all started with a viral video. Julian DeWitt, 22, was a rising horror content creator on a platform called Uketsu, known for combining analog horror with real-world urban legends. He'd gained hundreds of thousands of followers by exploring haunted places, cursed artifacts, and long-forgotten American folklore. One night, during a live Q&A, a viewer commented, "Go to the house near Benner's Creek. Locals say it changes when you go inside. Bet you won't." Julian, ever the thrill-seeker, responded with a smirk. Challenge accepted. Within days, Julian and his production team, his girlfriend Leah, best friend Marcus, and camerawoman Danny packed their gear and headed to Benner's Creek. They didn't need coordinates. Everyone in town knew where the house was and warned them to stay away. "You record in there, and it records you back," an old gas station attendant warned. "You see things in that house you can't unsee. It'll find what scares you most and paint it on the walls." They laughed it off. They shouldn't have. First entry. Julian's footage begins at 6:04 p.m., dusk settling behind them. The house is beautiful, almost suspiciously so, Victorian style, black shingles, red trim, untouched by time or weather. Its windows are too dark, too deep. "Looks like a film set," Marcus said. Stepping up the porch, they found the front door unlocked. The moment they crossed the threshold, their cameras glitched, brief static, then resumed recording. The house was warm, lived in, smelled faintly of lavender and iron. The first floor was ordinary, foyer, parlor, dining room, but Julian noticed something off. The walls bore portraits, realistic, paintings, but each canvas had the same face. Julian's different, expressions, different eras, a child version of himself, an old man version, one where his face was stretched in terror. "Danny," he whispered, "get this shot." But when they reviewed the footage later, the paintings didn't appear, just blank walls, shifting space. By hour 2, the house had begun to shift. Leah opened a door to the kitchen. Behind it was a stairwell. They went back, opened the same door. It was a bathroom now. "No way," Marcus muttered, pulling out a chalk stick. He drew an X on the wall. Moments later, the wall was gone. They weren't in a house anymore. They were in something pretending to be a house. The first disappearance. They lost Danny at 2:37 a.m. She was walking down a hallway when the lights flickered. Static buzzed in their earpieces. Then nothing. They searched for hours, calling her name until Leah screamed. She found Danny's camera on a table. The footage showed her walking calmly until a tall figure stepped out of the wall. Its face was smooth like porcelain, except for rows of tiny blinking eyes, dozens of them. It touched Danny's shoulder. She vanished. Painted terrors. The house began to feed on their fear. Julian saw himself crucified on a wall, the painting so realistic it smelled of blood. Marcus saw his childhood dog, dead from a car accident, panting and twitching in the corner. Leah's mother, who had died by suicide, whispered to her from inside the mirror, "Come with me, sweetheart. I'm not alone anymore." The house showed them things, personal things in impossible detail. It peeled back their minds and decorated the rooms with their nightmares. Somewhere deep in the house, Julian found a room filled with televisions. Each showed a version of himself dying in different ways. Hung, drowned, burned, consumed. He realized then the house was a painter, and they were its canvas. Escape attempt. They tried to leave. The front door now opened into a hallway with no end. Windows showed not the countryside, but a swirling darkness filled with white, static and muffled screams. Marcus cracked. He ran screaming down the hall and vanished into the black. His voice lingered in the air, echoing, replaying. "There's more than one of me now. More than one." Leah collapsed in a fetal position, humming a lullaby. Her eyes rolled back and her nose bled. Julian, trembling, clutched his camera. It was the only thing that still worked. The red recording light blinked steadily. He wasn't sure whether it was recording what he saw, or what the house wanted to be seen. The entity. At the center of the house, in a room that should not have existed, Julian met it. A figure taller than any man stood before a massive easel. Its body was long, skeletal, dressed in rags of human skin. Its face was a collection of writhing eyes, blinking, tracking, painting. With each stroke of its dripping brush, a scream echoed from the walls. Julian watched in horror as the figure painted him. Not as he was, but how he feared he would die, alone, forgotten, and insane. It turned to him and spoke, not aloud, but directly into his mind. "Thank you for the inspiration." Julian fled. The last video. Weeks later, Julian's camera was found sitting outside the house on the porch. The footage, unedited, horrifying, was uploaded to his Uketsu channel automatically. It gained 12 million views in 48 hours. The final shot is a still frame of Julian looking into the lens, but his eyes are wrong. They blink too many times, and in the reflection of the lens behind him, the painter smiles. Aftermath. The house is gone now. Locals say it burned down, though there was never a fire. Others say it moved, found another place to feed. The police never found Leah, Marcus, Danny, or Julian, only the camera. And once every few months, a new video appears on Julian's channel. No one knows who uploads them. They're all different lengths, all silent. Each one ends the same way, with a painting of the viewer's own face, contorted in fear. No one knows how the videos do it. But once you watch one, you start dreaming of hallways. You start seeing yourself in paintings, and sometimes just before the video ends, you feel like you're being watched. The rain fell in sheets, obscuring the world beyond the hospital window. Eleanor sat motionless beside her daughter's hospital bed, her fingers entwined with Lily's small, lifeless hand. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor had ceased hours ago, leaving a void filled only by the patter of rain and the hollow ache in Eleanor's chest. Lily had been the center of Eleanor's universe, a vibrant, curious child with an infectious laugh and a penchant for storytelling. Her sudden illness had been a cruel twist of fate, an aggressive leukemia that consumed her within months. Eleanor had tried everything: experimental treatments, alternative therapies, and countless prayers. Nothing had worked. As the funeral procession wound through the cemetery, Eleanor felt detached, as if watching someone else's life unfold. Friends and family offered condolences, their words empty and meaningless. She stood by Lily's grave, the cold wind biting through her black dress, and whispered, "I'll find a way to bring you back." Weeks turned into months, and Eleanor's grief festered into obsession. She withdrew from the world, spending her days scouring the internet and ancient texts for any hint of a way to reverse death. Her once cozy home transformed into a labyrinth of books, candles, and arcane symbols. One evening, while perusing a dusty tome titled The Veil Between Worlds, Eleanor stumbled upon a passage describing a ritual known as the Rite of Return. It claimed to bridge the gap between life and death, allowing a soul to return if certain conditions were met. The requirements were daunting: personal item belonging to the deceased, a mirror that had reflected the deceased in life, a location of significance to both the living and the dead, a blood offering from the one performing the ritual. Eleanor's heart raced. She had Lily's favorite stuffed rabbit, a mirror from her bedroom, and the treehouse they had built together in the backyard. The final requirement would be painful, but she was willing to do anything. Under the cover of night, Eleanor prepared the ritual site in the treehouse. She cleaned the space, placing Lily's belongings carefully around the room. The mirror was propped against the wall, reflecting the flickering candlelight. She drew the ritual circle with chalk, inscribing the ancient symbols as described in the book. As the final step, Eleanor pricked her finger with a ceremonial dagger, letting her blood drip onto the center of the circle. She chanted the incantation, her voice trembling but resolute. The air grew thick, the candles flickered violently, and a sudden gust of wind extinguished them all. In the darkness, Eleanor felt a presence, a cold, familiar sensation that made her heart leap. A soft glow emanated from the mirror, and Eleanor saw Lily's reflection smiling back at her. Tears streamed down her face as she reached out, her fingers touching the glass. The mirror rippled like water, and Lily stepped through, her form solid and warm. Eleanor held her daughter tightly, the world around them fading away. For a moment, everything felt right. In the days that followed, Eleanor and Lily resumed their lives together. They laughed, played, and read stories just like before. But something was off. Lily's eyes lacked their usual sparkle, and she often stared blankly into space. She spoke less, and her touch felt cold. Eleanor began to notice strange occurrences. Shadows moving on their own, whispers in the night, and objects shifting positions. Lily's behavior grew more erratic. She would disappear for hours, returning with no memory of where she'd been. One night, Eleanor awoke to find Lily standing at the foot of her bed, her eyes black as coal. "You shouldn't have brought me back," she said in a voice that wasn't hers. Desperate for answers, Eleanor revisited the veil between worlds. She discovered a warning she had previously overlooked. Those who return may not come back alone. The void is hungry, and it follows. Realization dawned. By performing the ritual, she had opened a door not just for Lily, but for something else. An entity from beyond had latched onto her daughter, using her as a vessel. Eleanor knew she had to act. She couldn't lose Lily again, but she couldn't let this darkness consume her child. Eleanor prepared a counter-ritual to banish the entity. It required a greater sacrifice, a life for a life. She set the stage in the treehouse once more, placing protective symbols and lighting candles. As Lily entered, the entity sensed the trap and lashed out, causing the room to shake violently. Eleanor stood firm, reciting the incantation with unwavering determination. The entity shrieked, a sound that pierced the night, as it was drawn from Lily's body. Eleanor stepped into the circle, embracing the darkness, and whispered, "Take me instead." With a final scream, the entity vanished and Eleanor collapsed. Lily awoke in her bed, the morning sun streaming through the window. She remembered nothing of the past weeks. The house was quiet and her mother was gone. In the treehouse, she found a letter addressed to her. "My dearest Lily, I couldn't bear to live without you, but I now understand that death is a part of life. I brought you back, and in doing so, I endangered you. I have made things right. Live your life fully, love deeply, and remember me. Forever yours, Mom." Lily clutched the letter to her chest, tears streaming down her face. She whispered, "I love you, Mommy," and felt a warmth envelop her, a final embrace from beyond. James A. Janice, host of Dead Meat, sat in his familiar studio, surrounded by horror memorabilia. The blood-red lighting glowed off rows of VHS tapes, action figures, and posters from iconic horror movies.
"What's up, horror heads?"
he said, flashing his trademark grin. "Today's kill count is going to be different." He held up a dusty, unmarked VHS tape. This came in an unmarked box to our studio. No note, no return address. Just this tape labeled only Rewi. James shrugged playfully. "Never heard of it. And neither has the internet. No IMDb listing. No letterboxed reviews. Naturally, I had to watch it." He leaned toward the camera, and what I saw was not a movie. The footage began innocently enough. A documentary-style introduction about a small, isolated town in New Zealand named Rewi. The camera panned through foggy forests and broken-down homes. Then the tone shifted. The camera moved shakily through scenes of disturbing imagery, figures with stitched mouths, children giggling in empty fields, and townspeople chanting in a forgotten dialect. James paused the tape. The production value was too real. The screams weren't dubbed. They were raw, like found footage, but with way more intent behind it. Still, James continued watching. His voiceover for the kill count broke down the events as usual. He tallied deaths. He laughed nervously. But then, around the 42-minute mark, something happened that made him stop the recording. Entirely. He appeared on camera again. Pale, shaking, I saw myself. In the crowd. In the film. Not an actor that looked like me. Me. Wearing this same shirt. Watching something burn. Unable to shake the image, James did what he did best. He researched. He reached out to horror scholars, archivists, even fans across Reddit and horror Discord. Servers. No one had heard of Rewi. That's when Chelsea, his girlfriend and Dead Meat co-producer, found something. A newspaper clipping from 1986. It reported a fire in a village named Jui, fatalities unknown. The village was later declared uninhabitable and wiped off official maps, with Chelsea's encouragement and morbid curiosity egging him on. James booked a flight to New Zealand. They documented everything for what they hoped would be a special, dead meat documentary. But what they found there wasn't for public consumption. Riwi didn't show up on GPS. The road that led to it was overgrown. The trees felt too dense, the air too quiet. The couple arrived at the skeletal remains of what once was a village. Houses slumped under moss. The smell of wet rot filled their nostrils. In the town square stood a totem made of bones and rusted film reels, spinning gently in the breeze. Tied to it were VHS tapes. They took one. Back at their nearby hotel, they played it. It wasn't a film. It was footage of James. Not James now, James as he was in the VHS tape. Showed him wandering Rewi, confused. It ended with a final frame. Him burning in a wicker structure shaped like a man. That night, Chelsea vanished from their room. James searched the woods. The trees whispered his name. He found a trail of VHS tape strips leading back to Rewi. In the village square, the totem had changed. The bone structure was now holding Chelsea, alive, gagged, eyes wide. A voice echoed from the trees. Low and ancient, Rewi was never a place. It was a lens James turned. A man stood behind him, his face a blank, featureless mass, save for a single eye blinking in the center. You watched. You invited us in. He pointed to the totem. Choose. To save Chelsea, James offered himself. The totem accepted. As flames engulfed the structure, Chelsea awoke miles away by the roadside, holding the original VHS tape of Rewi on it. Written in fresh blood. New kill count 1, she screamed. Chelsea, back in the safety of her apartment, couldn't shake the cold dread creeping over her. The tape she clutched seemed heavier than it should be, almost pulsating with an unseen energy. She tried to throw it away, but each time she did, it reappeared on her nightstand by morning. Desperate, Chelsea uploaded the footage to the internet, hoping to find answers or maybe just to rid herself of the cursed object. But Rewi began to spread, like a virus. Viewers reported strange phenomena. After watching the clip, shadowy figures in their peripheral vision, phantom whispers and vivid nightmares featuring the totem and the faceless man. One user, Watcher84, commented, "I'm seeing my own face burning in that fire. I swear it's real." Chelsea's heart pounded. The curse wasn't just a local legend anymore. It was global, hounded by emails and frantic calls from strangers who'd watched Rewi. Chelsea sought help from Dr. Morgan Halsey, a professor specializing in occult cinema and folk horror. Morgan explained the curse's origins. The town of Rewi had been a site of ancient rituals, where a cult sought to capture souls on film, binding them to an eternal reel of suffering. The film wasn't a movie, it was a prison, and every viewing fed its power. The kill count, Morgan warned, is not just tallying deaths. It's marking souls claimed by the curse. Together they devised a risky plan to find the original master. Tape rumored to contain a counter-ritual and break the curse by destroying it. Chelsea and Morgan returned to New Zealand, their journey shadowed by unseen eyes. The forest seemed alive, trees twisting, roots pulsing beneath their feet. They found an old, crumbling building hidden under vines, the cult's meeting hall. Inside, faded murals depicted the totem, the burning and an ominous ritual. In the basement, behind a loose stone, was a locked box containing the master tape. Morgan played it. The screen flickered to a ritual chant, but suddenly the room grew cold and the walls bled. Shadowy figures. Chelsea felt her soul being tugged, her vision dimming. Morgan shouted, "Destroy it now!" Chelsea smashed the VHS player, and the tape hissed as if screaming before going silent. Back home, the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The whispers stopped. The shadows fled. But Chelsea noticed a new message on her phone from an unknown number. "You stopped the film, but you didn't stop the story. Rewi is eternal." A faint flicker on the screen showed the faceless man smiling. The kill count was far from over. It was supposed to be a routine day at the office. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the beige cubicles. Mark, a software engineer in his late 20s, sat at his desk, eyes glued to the screen as lines of code scrolled by. The hum of computers and the occasional murmur of colleagues created a monotonous symphony. Suddenly, his monitor flickered. The code distorted, replaced by a yellow-tinted image of an endless hallway. Confused, Mark tapped the keyboard, but the image remained. Then, without warning, his surroundings shifted. The office dissolved, replaced by the very hallway from the image. The walls were a sickly yellow, the carpet damp beneath his feet, and the fluorescent lights buzzed incessantly. "What the hell?" Mark whispered, heart pounding. Mark wandered the endless corridors, each turn revealing more of the same. Yellow walls, damp carpet, and that maddening hum. Time lost meaning. There were no windows, no doors, no exits. Just an infinite maze. He tried to mark his path, tearing pieces of his shirt to leave a trail. But the fabric vanished moments after he placed it. Hunger gnawed at him and thirst parched his throat. Sleep became a necessity, but the constant hum made rest impossible. Occasionally he heard noises, footsteps, whispers, distant screams. He wasn't alone. Days, or was it weeks, passed. Mark's sanity frayed. Then he saw it, a shadowy figure at the end of a corridor. It had no discernible features, just a humanoid silhouette that moved with unnatural jerks. It didn't walk, it glided. Mark ran, heart pounding, lungs burning. The entity pursued him, always just out of sight but ever present. He stumbled into a room different from the rest, a small office with a desk and a computer. The screen displayed a message, "No way out." Despair consumed him. Determined to escape, Mark devised a plan. He would confront the entity, force it to reveal a way out. He retraced his steps, calling out, challenging it. The entity appeared closer than ever. Mark stood his ground. "What do you want?" he shouted. The entity paused, then lunged. Everything went black. Mark awoke at his desk, the office as it was before. Relief washed over him. Had it all been a dream? He looked around. Everything seemed normal. Then his monitor flickered, displaying the yellow hallway. The hum returned. He was back. Mark realized the truth. There was no escape. The back rooms had ensnared him in an endless loop. Each attempt to flee only reset the cycle. He was trapped, a prisoner of this liminal space. He began to document his experiences, carving messages into the walls. No way out. Beware the entity, endless loop. Perhaps someone else would find them, perhaps not.